Do I start? You want me to start?
Oh, all yours, Joel. It's good to have you back.
Oh, it's good to have you back. Yeah. Well, I'm back.
Are you back? Oh, yeah, you were back previously.
Previous one.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
You haven't done that many.
Hot sauce. That's not what you should have on your chips, guys. Welcome back to the Chip Lunch Podcast. My name is Joel, and I'm, of course, here joined by Ethan, who's usually here and laughing at the same time.
Hi.
And we have a lovely guest with us today. Hello, Quin.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Now, the question that we seem to be asking everyone that is on the podcast at the moment is, how do you take your chips? Hot chips. Because the other thing we haven't talked about, by the way, I was going to say to Ethan, is that, sorry to scare you,
No.
was that we haven't talked about crisps.
As in like chips.
Yeah.
Like
there's like a
Smiths or whatever.
Yeah, because they're called chips in other countries and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to, sorry, Quin, how do you take your hot chips?
Hot chips
Hot chips.
with chicken salt
Yes.
and barbecue sauce.
Ooh.
Barbecue sauce too. I knew you'd be a barbecue sauce person.
Yeah.
Because you talked about barbecue sauce on another.
I like barbecue sauce. Yeah. I think it's a
And
good
when I
time.
was younger, it was the chicken salt ratio was higher
Than the chip.
than the chip. But now I'm a bit older, I dial it down a little bit more.
Oh, dude, you
Got to
mean
think of my arteries.
higher ratio, meaning that you would put
Just smother them in
In
chicken
chicken
salt.
salt.
Like there would be a residue left on my fingers.
it's like a
Oh,
crust.
delicious.
Yeah.
My brother went and bought, I didn't even realize this was a thing you could do until Eli saw it at Coles, but you can buy like a thing, like a little tub of chicken salt.
Yeah, you can buy
And so
chicken
whenever
salt.
we got chips, we'd ask for chicken salt and then he'd just get the extra out. And
Yeah,
it was awesome. It was a great time.
yeah.
But I didn't learn about that till far later in my life.
Too late.
Yeah.
Well, you're all heathens. That's the problem. I can't, like, chicken salt is okay, but it's not anywhere near as good as the real salt.
I disagree.
So do I.
Surprise, surprise. Now, why have we invited you on this podcast today?
I don't know. What am I doing here?
Well, we always
What
like
is
to get
life?
different guests on and to chat about their experience as a Christian growing up. I've known you for a very long time, and you're affectionately known as Mama Quin because you're very like to gather all the chicks around you and look after them, which I very much appreciate about you. So I should say that. Didn't sound like I want to give you a hard time for the entire podcast. But the question that we always like to start with when we have a new guest on is, how did you become a Christian? Please tell us.
Well, I grew up in a Christian family, and so I had always known about God and about Jesus, but it was probably in early high school, maybe end of year 6, mid-year 7, where I probably took on my faith for myself. I don't remember really a particular time. There's probably been moments where I've recommitted over the years as well.
Yep.
But
So nothing you can think about at that time like made you think, oh, actually I need to take this more seriously? Or was there other periods of your life after that, as you said, during high school that made you recommit?
I think all through my life it's probably gone up and down to being more aware of God's existence in my life and then ignoring him again and sort of doing that dance, I suppose. But I don't think there was really anything at that early stage anyway. I mean, I got confirmed when I was in year 9, and to get confirmed in the Anglican Church, you need to be baptised first. And so the week before I was confirmed, I was baptised.
Okay.
So I got baptised and then I got confirmed because as a baby I was dedicated, which is not really anything, but well, like it is, but it's not. Anyway, we don't need to get into infant baptism.
No, we'll leave that for
That's
later.
a hot topic for another day. But But yeah, in hindsight, a lot of things are in hindsight.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking back, I had have wished that I only had got baptized.
Okay.
Not confirmed, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh, why is that?
because I feel like I only got baptized because I was getting confirmed.
Mm.
Okay.
So I'm like, I feel like had I have not just gone with the flow, and thought about it, been a bit more critical in my thinking, not a bit of a ditzy 14-year-old, I suppose.
I'm glad you can speak in such candid terms about yourself.
Yeah. Like I think that would have been a better choice to have made. And it was only after leading someone through youth and her not getting confirmed and being baptized as a teenager, I was like, oh, damn it, you're so cool. I wish I had the brain capacity to think about things like that when I was 14, 15. Anyway.
So why did you think you needed to get confirmed? Like I know you said you need to get you had to get baptized before you get confirmed. Why did you think you needed to get confirmed in order to then you got baptized?
So I wanted to get confirmed because confirmation is standing up in front of your church family and saying, I choose to follow Christ. But effectively getting baptized is the same. Well, yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's
the same thing.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to get confirmed and do that and publicly say, yes, I want to follow Jesus. But yeah, I probably could have just got baptized.
Right. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's interesting. Some people talk about when they do confirmation, and we have to do. I remember when I did my confirmation, you had to do classes, and makes you like really like. If you're standing up in front of a church and saying this is what you believe, like it actually makes you really think about it.
Yes.
Was there anything? Was that something that happened for you as well?
Yeah, like it certainly did that. Like when we talked about, like we did like classes and things and talked about, I don't know, heaps of different things. And it was an emotional day. I remember it very clearly. But for most people, they had been baptized as kids. So it was them taking on the promises for themselves that their parents made for them when they were younger. So I probably could have just got baptized to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're 14 then when you got confirmed?
Yes, I was young for my year.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Yeah.
well, I didn't get confirmed until I was finished school actually.
Finished school?
High school, yeah. I got it done
right.
after high school.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And you talked about you like moved away from God and came back and moved away kind of thing during what are the reasons that kind of drew you away from God, and what are the reasons that kind of called you back to him?
So I think growing up I've always sort of had this sense of strong sense of justice, like things have to be right, and if things aren't right, then it makes me very uncomfortable.
Okay.
So
hang on, let's stop for a second. You know any reason why?
I don't know. I'd probably need to spend some time with a psychologist to
okay, sorry.
figure that out. But
keep going.
I don't know. I suppose from a very young age, I had been brought up to be very responsible, and I suppose that responsibility with
great responsibility.
Great responsibility.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I don't know.
Quin is actually Spider-Man, everybody.
Actually. I don't know. I just felt like
when you saw injustice, it made you feel like you need to do something about it?
Yeah, but I think injustice according to me.
Yeah. Okay.
So from my perspective. So it may not have been unjust for that person, but I'm like, no, that's not right. And they're like, Quin, it's all right. Like, calm down. Like, yeah.
Okay.
So from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay.
So it may well have not been what was actually happening.
Yep.
But I suppose as a teenager and as a young person, being quite egotistical, sometimes not looking at the whole picture, that sort of.
But when you're in school, like high school, it's just like it's high school and that's it. It's like you don't know the wider world very well.
Exactly.
So my first question though, sorry. Was no, I interrupted you. Why talking about the injustice stuff? Why did that injustice and the strong sense of justice play into the fact of you possibly moving away from God and then coming back to Him?
So probably that feeling that I can do things myself and I can fix things myself. And then you can't because you're not God. I'm not God. And so I would spend all this time trying to fix things and then go, oh, hang on a minute. Could probably ask God to help me out here.
Have we got an example?
Let me have a think. I'll leave it with me. I'll think.
Cool. And is that like justice, is that something that you had a strong idea of as well when you're at high school? Because what we talk about is a high school being a Christian to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did. Or maybe I did. I'm like, that's dumb. But then maybe I didn't have to go and fix it like you were saying, Quinn. I was like, well, that's just stupid. I'm just going to walk away from it rather than I'm not going to change it.
I think I noticed my little brother actually having a stronger, like,
yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
I can see that.
he leaned that way a little bit more. I think I don't know if this is the case for you, Quinn, but it's definitely the case for Elijah. Not to like say anything negative about him because he's the best, but he is a bit more black and white than I am. And I think in that black and white, it's that there's a very right and there's a very wrong, and you're not in the middle. And he's a lot better at that now. He's a lot more grey now as he's gotten into his later teenage years. But yeah, especially early on, it was like there's right, there's wrong, and wrong is wrong. And I think I've always been a bit okay to work in the grey, which has meant that when I see injustice, I've often asked questions instead of I've seen injustice and been like, that is whatever. Like it's maybe it's something I've gotten better at potentially. I don't know if I was like this when I was a lot younger, but I at least now go, okay, why is that happening? Rather than that is just the incorrect thing to happen, for example. I think that's how I think it's that looking at the grey, living in the grey is a different thing.
Yeah. And I think I've got a lot better as well as spending a bit more time in the grey. And I like to call it that balance between truth and grace, like having grace with people. And as I've got older, I've been able to have a lot more grace with people. Because
that's tweetable.
Yeah. Clip it, producer Dave.
Oh yeah, we didn't introduce introduce Dave.
Well, he's not on a mic, which makes it hard. But we've got a producer today, which I'm excited about. He's going to Jamie it up like Joe Rogan's podcast if we ever need to look up anything at the time. So my question, Quinn, was about the black and white and truth and grace. I was thinking that's really cool. Where do you get can you explain truth and grace more? Like what is it and how's that developed for you? Because I'm interested in that.
So I think for a lot of time I was like probably held people around me to probably impossible standards, and not from any, like I'm not perfect by any stretch, so it doesn't even make sense.
Well, are you saying you weren't intentionally doing that?
No, I was probably intentionally doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, like probably intentionally doing it, but not how do I say it? Not giving people grace when they gave me plenty of grace. Okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not necessarily putting those standards on yourself.
Yeah, it was this thing, as in, like I said from the start, it was this justice thing, but from my point of view. So, from my perspective. So, if someone said that, like I always had this thing that if you say you're going to do something, then just do it. And if you don't, then we're going to have issues. Whereas now I'm like, okay, someone said they were going to do something, they haven't done it. It's going to be okay. Like we can work with that.
Yeah.
But also for that person that hasn't done whatever they're going to do, how, if they want to, how can we work alongside them?
And that's the truth part? Is that what you're talking about?
That's the grace part.
Okay. So grace is being okay with them not doing what they said they're going to do.
Yeah.
But then how do you work with them? Is that the truth part or not?
I suppose so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to understand that it's about truth and grace now? Is it something that God led you to believe, or is it something that you found in the Bible, or is it just experience in life?
I think it's all of those things. I think God's continually shaping and changing me into a better Christian. And I think just just think you find after like a while being a bit gentler with people generally is the better way to go.
Better approach.
It's a better approach, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you got something that you're looking up there for us, Ethan?
Just that it's just really cool that grace and truth thing. If you look at John, you see that it comes like straight from Jesus. And it says like, this is just a little snippet of a verse that says, oh, I lost it now. Something about, for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And there's more around that that helps support that. But it's a lovely little point on the fact that coming to that conclusion, Quin, is really cool because it's really easy to see that God's been working in your life, whether it be and it is more than just the language that you're getting from the Bible. It's actually getting a sense of a way of living from Jesus, and I think that's something we should all be striving to, like, I don't know, see the things we've got, whether it be I don't know the word, that a sense of justice that is not correct necessarily, and going, oh well, how does Jesus deal with that? And that applies for everything we do in life. And I think that's really cool to see that that's something that's happened throughout your life and is something that's actually molded you and changed you. And I'm really encouraged by that. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, like even the truth and grace thing is like, if we want the perfect example of truth and grace, it's God and His Son Jesus, because we only get His grace through Jesus' death on the cross, and the truth is that's the truth. So I think maybe that's what I was trying to look for, and I asked you that question, Quin, was like I think it's, as because we're sinful people, it's a daily battle to actually realize that. We have all these things that make us think, oh, this is my sense of justice. This is my sense of this. But hang on a sec. Daily we need to remind ourselves that as long as we put our faith in Jesus, truth and justice, when it happens, we don't know, but it will play out in the end, because God is a just God. But He's also a very gracious God. And gives us so many chances, not just second chances, like 5 million chances, to be able to keep coming back to Him and keep finding that real truth. So I think that's really cool. Quin, let's go back. Can we go back to your high school time?
Such a great time to relive.
Oh, you don't want to relive it? Because this is a
lucky
pattern.
To get out alive.
Well, this is but this is a theme that keeps coming up with the people that guess and ourselves that we've been talking about, is that some of us, quite a few of us, did not. There are a lot of parts of high school we did not enjoy, and it's interesting that we think there are lots of people in high school enjoying themselves when we're in high school. You know what I mean? Like, even if there's different groups of people, and you're like, oh, those people are cool, or those people have got this or that, like, but
they've got it made.
No one's loving it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, no one. That's how I feel. Is that no one actually enjoyed school when they come out of it and think about it, but you often get conditioned in high school. It's like, this is how the world is. And so you come out of it and some people are like, well, life should be like high school for some people. And then other people's like, I hated school. I couldn't wait to get out of it. Like, I even listened to Lewis a couple of episodes ago. He was saying that, like, I didn't even want to be there.
Yeah.
But it is a pattern between is like, oh, I didn't like this about school. It was cool to have friends, but I didn't like this about school because we're all just vying for attention or for status or all that kind of thing. Is that, you were saying you didn't enjoy it? What didn't you enjoy about school?
I think I was just like always just waiting for the next thing. Like I just always wanted to be on to the next stage of life. And had I have just maybe spent some time there enjoying where I was, maybe it would have been a better experience. But
So did you think that you were more mature, so you should?
I think
move into
so.
there?
I
Oh,
think
okay.
so.
That's interesting.
All these other teenagers that are under me.
Well, no, not so much of that,
No,
but at home,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had like a 2-year-old and 5-year-old brother, so
Yeah.
I was like looking after them, and which was fine. Like it's fine.
No, but this is just
it
your
was-
life
Yeah.
experience.
It was just
Yeah.
a different. I don't know. I was always.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
When can I move on to get the full experience of life?
no, I suppose I just was like always being older than I was. I suppose. So
And
dealing with adult things
yes,
when I probably shouldn't have been dealing with adult things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or even just other people your age weren't having to deal with that.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of trauma around that time.
Okay.
With friends, with family, and so it was always sort of dealing with a lot of things, being young for my year, but being thrown into being this older person, I suppose.
And feeling like you have to grow up
Quickly.
even quicker than you thought you might have had, but you didn't realize at the time. But you like, my friends
it
don't have
was-
to do this,
it
but
was
I have
just-
to grow up.
It was just
quicker.
how it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sorry. I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Good on you for sharing that. I think, I mean, that's not an experience that I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because I had my sister 3 years younger than me, and then that was it. So
Yeah.
I had a very cushy lifestyle in terms of home life. I remember that a couple of weeks ago when we were doing one of our digital gatherings, you shared the fact that Jesus helped you change something in your life and remove yourself from a particular group of friends. Is that something you want to give us more details on if you feel like?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So when I went to quite a small primary school. So when you get thrown into high school, it's like, wow. Like,
because you went to Kirrawee High.
I went to Kirrawee High and I went to Grace Point
big school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same as Ethan.
Same as Ethan. It was like I really enjoyed growing up in Grace Point. It was awesome. But
huge jump though, eh? Like,
huge jump. And I mean, like even before high school, like when I was in year 4, there was this one girl who turned the whole grade against me. And like mum's like, no, I'm not having that. So she went up to the school and complained. And
what topic? What did she turn you?
Oh, I've got no idea. I can't even remember the circumstances of which, but because it was such a small year,
yes,
it was like,
and
would have been
bad. It would have been very different.
Anyway, the teachers worked with me and to find some new friends. Anyway, I ended up finding this small group of girls, and we all came from either divorced or separated parents.
Okay.
So it's just really interesting.
Okay.
But it was really good because it sort of it provided a bit more normalcy for my, is that a word?
Normalcy.
Normalcy. Normalcy. I'm sure.
Google it, Dave.
Google it. Yes, we can use the computer.
I think it's normality or normalcy. I believe
Normalcy?
they're one of the two.
Normal.
Yeah, there you go. Normalcy.
Oh,
Normality
we're-
versus normalcy.
Yeah.
Normality.
Which
They're
one?
both words.
Which one do I use?
We're also just looking at images. There we go.
Normalcy, the condition of being normal, the state of being usual, typical, or expected, versus
the noun. There
okay.
you
So
go.
it's a noun, normalcy.
You're either doing it or anyway, whatever.
Sure.
So you found
So
yourself
that's
in
sort
a
of-
group of people
Thanks,
with a
Dave.
similar situation.
Same like-minded, blah, blah. Anyway, but then after high school, after primary school, one of them moved to Port Hacking.
Yep.
And so there was the 3 of us, and we were like, okay,
That's high school it is.
this is interesting.
Yeah.
So
3 of you against not against, but like it just becomes this.
it's like this isn't
Yeah.
going to last for very long. We all get split up into different classes, you know.
straight away.
Okay.
It is what it is. Anyway, moving into high school.
Yeah.
My cohort was quite a horrible cohort. They weren't very nice to one another. There was heaps of hoo-ha going on. Like my husband
goodness.
Ross's year, he had a really nice year moving through high school. Like they all partied together. It didn't matter what group you were from. They all went to the same party. Everyone was invited. I'm like, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I've heard other people talk about their years like that. And I'm like, oh, what?
never, ever happen
Yeah.
in my year. Anyway, I mean, it's fine. There was very distinct groups. So I found myself in this wider group made up of different people from different schools and whatever. And it was fine. It was fine. We're doing normal girly things, whatever. But my older brother was in the year directly above me. So even though we're 22 months apart, I went younger and he was normal age for his year. So he was only a year above me. So he had some friends. I don't even know if they were friends, but they used to sit next to us in the quad. So you used to sit and have your lunch. And then, I don't know, year 8 or something, end of year 8, sort of start of year 9, this one girl used to get her Devon off her sandwich and throw it at me every single day. So I used to get like Devon sauce and Devon all down my school shirt.
This is why
That is
you don't
horrible.
Like, is that tomato sauce too?
And it was tomato sauce.
Is that why you only have barbecue sauce on
No.
your chips?
No.
Okay.
You can only have tomato sauce with Devon.
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
So I was like, oh man, I hate this.
Yeah.
Like,
That sucks.
and like I was so tiny in year 7 and 8. I was so tiny, skinny and tiny.
Yep.
I know it's hard to believe now.
Just you said tiny so many times. I was like, what were you, a
Tall,
miniature figurine?
no, like tall, but like
Very
a
thin.
string bean, if you like,
Okay.
and glasses. I just didn't have a lot going for me. And then in year 9, I got braces. Like it was anyway. And then I don't know, end of year 8, so start of year 9, they started it. That was like when partying started.
Jeez, that seems early.
Yeah, smoking started, meeting at Kirrawee Oval for parties. I used to have a friend that lived over the bridge, over the highway bridge, and so I used to go to her house for sleepovers, but make our way to some other places before getting to her house for a sleepover. It's all right, Mum knows all about this. We've reconciled. So it's just starting to get into some stuff that probably wasn't, that helpful. Ideal. And then our group started to be called the Too Cool Group.
What?
I thought you said you weren't cool.
Is this one of those names that gets coined by the group themselves?
No.
External?
It was out external.
Okay.
We're going to call ourselves the Too Cool.
No. They started calling us, and I just, it's so funny the stuff that you remember. There's like, you're the Too Cool Group. Oh, you're the TCs. What? Yeah, the TCs. What?
That's funny.
I'm like, oh, girls are so stupid. Anyway, but it just started to get a bit like, but then the Too Cool tag sort of started to get attached with sexually promiscuous is probably a better word than I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Everyone knows the word, so we'll keep going.
I'm like, oh, no, it's just like.
That's not me.
You guys do you, but I'm just not sure this is where I want the track I want to head down.
Okay.
So I just left the friendship group.
Is that hard?
It was hard because I didn't think that it'd be such a big deal to them. Because I'm like, well, we have, like, sure, we're hanging out on the weekends sometimes, but by that stage I was going to youth group, going to church, leading kids' church. Our weekends looked very different. Like overall, like I was still partying here and there, but it was already a natural thing that was happening. We were already moving different. So when I said, oh, I'm not going to sit with you anymore.
Wow. That's impressive that you did that. Mate.
Yeah, very.
They were like, oh, why not? And at that point, I probably should have been aware enough to say, because I don't want to do what you're doing anymore, or something.
Too much
but
truth, but not enough grace.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just sort of said, I just don't want to. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
okay. Well, again, that's a hard thing to do
Yeah,
for a friendship group.
It really is.
So you're probably like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get out of it as quickly as possible. So I just don't want to. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.
So then I joined I don't know. They weren't the nerds, but they were pretty boring.
They weren't too cool.
They weren't too cool. They were very lovely, not spicy.
Spicy.
And just sort of, and they were very, very nice to let me sit with them because there was no crossing of boundaries in the quadrangle. There was no crossing of groups. So I sort of hung along on the outer sort of thing of their group. And it just means that I don't really have any close friends from high school anymore, which is a bit sad, but that's how it goes.
Isn't that fascinating that at high school it's just kind of like how it just like organically formed in a way, but it's kind of like this group is sitting over here, and then for the rest of high school, that's where they're sitting.
Yep.
And it's like
you cannot change.
if you cross over, like it's like
Yeah.
And I mean that happened to me. The only reason I crossed over to another group, in a sense, was because my girlfriend was in that group. Like, and that's like the only time you can actually maybe cross over is they're in a relationship. That it's like
we had this big like combo moment at one point because one guy started dating a girl from another group. And that group actually just happened to be sitting like kind of next to where like they're in like the next segment. And so it became like, oh, now both those groups would play handball in the same spot. And like that's what happened.
That's nice. That's a nice merging.
It was like I was going to say Romeo and Juliet, but that actually didn't go well.
Well, that's true. The only time that other groups would come together in our school was if you were playing football.
Yep.
Or soccer, for those unenlightened people. But if like it was on a basketball court at our school, we would play on a basketball court, and the poles that held up the basketball rings were actually used as goals. So they're really narrow, but that's what we would play on. But there was like 50 of us sometimes playing at the same time on this basketball court.
Awesome.
So if you're going to say you're going to leave a group, Quin, do you think it's harder for girls or guys to do that? Because this is a perspective that I never had it at the time, but I think it's very different between girls and guys having to do that. And if you're ostracized from a group.
Look, I think on the whole, stereotypically, I think guys are a lot more probably willing to just go with whatever, like run with, all right.
Well, if you let someone in the group,
let's get a football, let's get a handball, and let's just move on with our lives.
You will pay them out massively to make sure they know their place.
Oh yeah, like they need to know who the head honcho is.
Yeah,
but I think
who the alpha
is. Yeah, but I think girls hold on to stuff a lot more.
Okay,
and hold on to issues a lot more, and so there's can be a lot more bitchy comments.
Like when you said you wanted to leave, it sounded like they were like, you didn't think they were going to be upset, but then they were really upset. Was that?
They weren't like I didn't shake their worlds or anything, but I think they were like, they thought that I was being a bitch to them for leaving their group.
But is that because perhaps you were calling out some of their behaviour that they weren't sure about?
Oh, I don't think they would. I don't think. Oh, I don't know. I don't think at that age that they would really. Think
well, not intentionally, but that's
intentionally, think that deeply about it.
I'm
I don't know
if that's why.
Maybe
if your actions did that.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So was there more normalcy in the new group, Quin?
Yeah. Look, as I said, it was just pretty much rocking up to school. Hey, how you going? I can eat my lunch with you, and let's just move on with our day. So I didn't like sort of gain much, if you like, from those friendships. It was just, yeah.
And what year was that when you decided to leave that group?
Like, as in what year I was in?
Yeah, what year were
Year
you
9.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
That's a crucial time. I'm very impressed that you
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I could have done it.
Well, I think I felt in myself, again, back to this truth and justice sort of thing, I felt like I was drifting too far from the truth. So the truth, I had to make a big change, and it was going to be then, or I was going down the path of, I was going to put my life on a totally different path, I think, of partying, promiscuity,
The works.
the works.
What made you know that that wasn't the right way? Like a way that you didn't want to pursue?
So like I'm lucky enough to have an older brother, and he sort of paved the way for badness. So anything he did, what I did sort of paled in comparison.
Right.
So I don't think like he's great, but I don't think I was ever going to go to, I don't think, again, this sense of rightness, I don't think I could ever consciously go to his extremes, but I think that sort of paved the way for, that's probably not a good idea to go to do that.
As long as I'm pulled back a little bit from what he was doing.
This responsibility thing as well was like, but I've still got to look after somebody. Yeah. I've still got to change somebody's nappy. So I can't be, and also like I've got a really great mum, right? And so probably between years 7, 8, 9, I got really bad migraines, like really, really bad migraines. Like I'd have to sleep it off. My whole body would shut down.
Wow.
And the first one that happened was in year 7, and I was in the playground and I was walking across the playground like lunchtime with a friend. I don't even know who it was. And I'm like, I can't see properly. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I can't see. And they're like, are you all right? And I'm like, oh. And then I started talking like gibberish. Like I was like, I can't, I've got to get the music books. And she's like, what? She's like, maybe I should take you to the office.
Oh my gosh.
So like that was the first one I had. And so I had an MRI and everything. I was fine. My brain's fine apart from what I know of. Anyway. And so, but rather than mum saying, oh, I don't reckon you should go to that party tonight, she'd be like, you go, but you just remember that if you don't sleep tonight, you may have a migraine tomorrow to deal with. And so she'd really let me make that decision, because it was like, there was like a 95% chance if I stay out late, get up early the next morning, a migraine's on its way.
Yeah.
So she's like, you choose. So I was like, okay, all right. So, and I imagine as a mum, that would be pretty hard to do. Like,
you're going to do that with your kids?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how good I'm going to be at doing that, being able to be like, you figure that out for yourself. Yeah. So again, that sense of responsibility, it was like, I think that really put me on a path of making my own choices for what's going to be work out better. And sometimes I didn't make the right choice, but yeah.
But I reckon it's really interesting when you say that and then you had the guts to go and say that to your friendship group. I reckon that's really interesting. So your mum taught you responsibility. It's like, I've got to take responsibility for my actions. If I don't want to follow that path, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And you could have just like faded. Like,
like Homer Simpson.
Just like into the hedge. Like you could have just done I'm just going to never rock up in that section of the school again.
See ya. Yeah.
But again, you took responsibility for it and like said, no, I'm not doing this. Yeah. That's why I'm impressed by it.
Yeah.
Massively.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell us year 9, but like give us an overview of coming to the end of high school and coming out of high school and how that affected your relationship with Jesus.
Okay.
You pick what you want to talk about and I'll just follow you up on anything that you missed.
Yeah. So I think so moving through like different friendship groups, I think coming out of high school, I don't know. There was what to say.
Is this stuff that you don't want to share?
No, it's just a lot.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just trying to pick
Well,
out.
rewind it back
Trying to pick out things that are going to be helpful.
Yeah. Not helpful. Tell us what you want to tell us.
So yeah, so at the I don't know, around year 11, Ross, my now husband, and I started dating.
Because you were going to Gymea Anglican Church.
So yeah, I was going to Gymea Anglican Church.
Right?
That's where I met.
Yeah.
We met because he went to Carringbar High.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But Ross was the youngest of his family, and I was one of the eldest of my family. So our experiences growing up were very different. So our leeway as teenagers was very different.
Yep.
So I don't want to paint mum as this person who didn't care about her teenagers, but
she's parented differently.
Parented very differently. She would always be there if I needed her to be, but she didn't need to know where I was 24/7. Whereas I guess, Ross's parents needed to know where they were, they were a lot more. So that meant that our sort of hanging out was interesting. But anyway, but the reason I said that is because we ended up breaking up for a year. And so that happened sort of in year 12. So year 12 sort of was that it was just all a bit of a blur. I just had a lot of stuff going on, and it just, I don't even know what happened. And in the midst of that, I had started, we were leading. No, I wasn't leading youth at that point in time, but I was doing Saturday night solies, Sunday morning kids church, and Sunday night church. So that was great. And then after moving out of high school, I moved out of home, which was really good, which I recommend to anyone doing if you can swing it, to move out for a little while. And Ross also moved out of home, which also really helped.
Did you do that alone or?
No, with girlfriends. And so that was really, it just again sort of was probably a point again where I had to choose, because with obviously moving out again comes more freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of whatever, and you have to choose how to use that freedom.
Yeah, it's like what we talk about with uni and stuff too. It's just like you can go and do basically whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Free time.
Yes.
And how we ever reflected, it was good to be able to do that, but it also taught us man, we could have done so much more.
Yes.
Than what we wasted.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. But it was good having all that time, because then again at that time I started leading youth. So
yeah.
I
cool.
started leading youth I joined when the girls were in year 9 and year 10. So that was really interesting, watching them at that stage where probably it changed for me in high school.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how God kind of brings it back to those kind of things? The reason that you probably went and leading at that time was because you had so much experience of what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Were there girls that you were leading that had a similar situation to you as well, or not?
Yeah. And
yeah, see, that's
but interestingly, I was leading, so this is like real full circle. The year I was leading was my brother's year. So I had to be.
Yes, you were. Yeah, that's right.
I had to be careful there.
You're above me. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I changed your nappies. Behave.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't really. I had to really just focus on the girls, but it was. There was a few big issues happening, but I was able to bring probably more a balanced point of view, and then a more
Yes.
grey
Cool.
area point of view.
Mm.
For that, yeah. A few of the younger leaders were like, "Oh gosh, what are we going to do? This is like the end of the world." I'm like, "No, it's really not." Like,
Yeah, I've done this
Yeah.
many
I've
times.
seen this before.
Yeah.
They'll come back.
Mm.
So
Do you want to tell us about your family?
my family.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Well, so like,
my crazy big family.
well, not just that, but you said there's a lot of people in your household,
Yes.
which you said before. But then also tell us how that influences how you're a mum now. You're a mum of 3 kids.
Yes.
And obviously married to Ross.
Yes.
Can you describe how that's kind of influenced how you kind of think about how you're being a mum now?
So my parents divorced when I was 2, and my mum remarried when I was 6. And my mum and stepdad are Christians, and my dad ended up marrying a Muslim lady, and became Muslim. So that sort of just brought a whole host of interesting challenges growing up.
Yes, that's a really good way of describing it.
Yes. So like there were times when I was, and this is what I'm talking about, the sort of really knowing God's presence and really not knowing or ignoring God's presence in my life. When I was younger, my stepmom said, "Oh, you should come to the mosque. I think it'd be really good for you to come to the mosque."
Okay.
And I said, "Get away from me, devil woman."
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So
Here comes the truth.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it may have been like a bit of a strong reaction, but
May have been?
I feel
Or
like-
was?
and I was only like 7 or something at the time.
Okay.
But I think that was like some real strong
Yeah.
like
There's a spiritual element to
this
it.
is something. And I think certainly in hindsight, I've definitely noticed some very spiritual things that had happened. And
Oh, okay.
however much I tried to ignore God growing up and push the boundaries and push the limits, He's always protected me. Anyway.
Well, that's that like idea in the Bible that God's a shepherd of His people,
Exactly.
all from the Old Testament all the way into the New Testament. And yeah, that's really interesting. Okay.
Anyway, what'd you ask? So growing up, anyway, so in my
How many
family,
in your family, there's
in my family growing up, regularly, there was my mum, my stepdad, my older brother, myself, my stepsister, who's a year younger than me, and then my 2 younger brothers. So 5 kids in sort of regular proximity. And then I have like 4 step and half siblings who I don't see anymore.
That's on from your dad's side.
That's from my dad's side.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
It's
going on.
a
Very
lot.
lot.
So you can probably explain some of the things that you're talking about growing up as well,
Yeah.
which is understandable.
Yeah.
Being a Christian
Mm.
and then obviously marrying Ross and then building your own family.
Mm.
What are the things that Jesus is teaching you to do and not do, given your experiences?
So I think I am trying to raise them to be independent, because I really feel like that's something that I'm grateful for from mum. I really that strong, being able to cope, being strong. So I'm hoping I'm passing that on to them. I don't know if I am, but
I just remember coming home from something one day and Dad's like, "Guess what I saw today?" And I was like, "What?" It's like, we were at Quin's place and her kids did their own washing.
he took a photo.
It was the best thing ever.
He's like, "I'm going to post this." I'm like, okay. But yeah, just that, like, yeah. And I think I want them to make the decision for themselves to follow Jesus as well. Mum had this rule when we were growing up that we had to go to church until we were 16, and then we could make the choice to either stay or go. And for most of us, that's worked out really well. I'm still waiting for my older brother to come back to the Lord, and I'm praying that he will do so. But that strong Christian foundation has really kept me going, and I am hoping to pass that on to my kids and Ross as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool.
Mm.
And do you see that? I mean, I'm really fascinated about the thing that you keep talking about, responsibility, because that's something I'm pretty fascinated by. I don't know if, I think especially as a man, taking responsibility is when you start, I don't know, that's when life almost begins as a man. And when that is, I don't know, but that's in my experience. But also if you take responsibility, it's not in the sense of controlling something, but it's also like I'm responsible for my actions, whether I hurt people or whether I don't hurt people or I can help people or all that kind of thing. And I find that Jesus obviously dying on the cross takes the ultimate responsibility for our sin, right? So we can, as the example from him, take responsibility for our own lives and our own sin. And we do that obviously by saying, like, Jesus has taught us forgiveness, so we know we're forgiven. So that's also taking responsibility. Is like if we are sinful to someone, we go and say sorry. That's taking responsibility for hurting someone. I feel like that's something that I'm trying to teach my kids too, is that if you do hurt someone, like I talk to him, like if my son hits my daughter for something he's upset about, I say, you need to stop this behavior. But first of all, figure out why you did it. But second of all, take responsibility for it, because that's when they actually move on from it. And I think that's a similar thing that we gain from seeing Jesus dying on the cross, is that we can go, oh, if he's taking responsibility for me, I can take responsibility for my actions and do that. So is that something that resonates with you as well?
Yeah, and I think also that control, I think because of that sense of responsibility, but also that sense of being able to do things, I think it's been a learning curve for me to give over control of my life to Jesus.
Yeah, right.
So knowing that I can't control everything, and knowing that I can't, like, for my own sin.
And your salvation's taken care of.
Actually trusting that God has my salvation. Like, that has been a learning thing as well, that I can't, that I actually have to give it all over to God, all of my life over to God.
Yeah.
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 That's been a tricky thing as a competent person to, like, I'm not talking myself up in saying that I can do things.
Yeah.
It's that's one of the difficulties, I suppose, is to be humble enough to give all of my life over to Jesus. Yeah.
And as you spoke about, as you grew up, there were situations where you felt like you couldn't do that because of the way that you grew up. Like, obviously a rather, what's the right word, a blended family environment. Yes. There's a lot of things you can't control.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things you can't control at high school either. And so we're always trying, whatever our situation is, trying to find control.
Yes.
But when we decide to give that control to God, that's when we can actually experience a lot of freedom, I think.
Yeah.
Would you?
My only add-on there is that I am very similar in that I like having control over situations because of that competency. It's like, yeah, I can do this, and it's hard because for a lot of my life, it's only been when I really need him that I've been like, God help.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's about that, actually, like you were saying, that whole not just turning to God then.
Yes.
It's turning to God always in all control, rather than just like, oh no, it's gone. I've got nothing. God help.
Can't do it. Yeah.
I used to only go to God sometimes I used to only go to God when things were going well. And when things weren't going well, I would try and fix it myself. But then that flipped, and I would only go to God when things were going badly and things were going well. But I think part of the thing that you're saying, Quinn and Heath, is that if you focus on giving that control to God all the time and knowing that He is control in the good times and the bad times, that's exactly where we struggle to do it, but that's exactly where the true freedom is.
Yeah.
And it possibly would have saved a lot of issue and heartache through high school as well. Had I have just spent a bit more time giving it over to God.
That's exactly what
I think.
when we've talked about that previously as well. It's the
No,
same
100%.
thing as like I wish I spent more time focusing on not my status, not how I had looked at school, not whether I was able to get my revenge paying this person out and all that kind of thing. It's like if I just spent time going, God, what do you want me to do in this situation? Rather than focusing on myself, trying to take responsibility or control all the time, and then being able to be that peacemaker that we're trying to talk about. And I think that like if we talk about all the guests we had on, Ethan, I think Ethan, because you became a Christian so early in your life, I think you've probably realized that earlier.
Potentially,
And you tried really hard at high school to be a peacemaker. And even though, like, again, we're sinful, we fail, whatever. But that's the pattern we keep coming across is with yourself and all of us is that, man, I wish at high school we had just listened to God more.
Well, and also like our youth leaders would be like, guys, this is, and girls, this is like the time. When you're at high school, you've got an audience. Yeah. Like now's the time. And I wish I hadn't have wasted so much time. And they said the same thing. And now I'm like, however old I was like, oh, I really wasted all that time. And then when I went to TAFE and then when I went to uni, I'm like, just wasted all that time again. Haven't used it wisely, spent telling people about Jesus. Like, yeah.
But then
it's
God's
really
also using those times to teach us. Like we talked about how you went through that stuff in high school and then you went back and led people going through a similar thing.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
God works for us in all circumstances.
In mysterious ways.
Mysterious ways. Indeed. Yeah. Thanks very much to producer Dave for helping us out in this episode.
Legend.
Good, excellent Googling. Thank you, man. Thank you very much, Quin, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your honesty and telling us about your life. It's cool. And thanks heaps, Ethan, for joining us as well.
I'm super encouraged.
Yes.
It's really cool.
I am. And my name's Joel. Check out our other podcasts on YouTube. I'm doing a really lazy peace sign.
Isn't it supposed to be one way?
Oh yeah, and I'm doing that.
No?
Thank you. And then we're going to say, I'm going to say, I've got to do my outro.
I'm ruining it.
I've got to do my outro. Wrap up the chips, guys. It's finished, and we'll finish with a one way.